Well, I want to share with you from a verse in Matthew 25. Now, in Matthew 25, Jesus is telling parables about what the kingdom of God is like. And in verse 14, we get to the parable of the talents. I'm sure you know it. And Jesus says that the kingdom of heaven is like a wealthy man who goes on a long trip and puts his possessions or puts his money with his servants. One servant, he gives 5 talents. And I think the Passion Translation says 5,000 gold coins. And another another servant gets 2,000 golden coins. And then another servant gets 1,000 golden coins or 1 talent, depending which your translation says. And the master is away for a long time. And then when he comes back, he gathers his servants together, and the one with 5,000 golden coins says, here you go, here's my 5,000 golden coins, and here's 5,000 more which I made off it. And the one with 2,000 says, here's your 2,000, and I made 2,000 more for you. And the master is, good and faithful servants, with you I am well pleased. And then comes the servant in who was given the 1 talent or the 1,000 golden coins. And the servant says to the master, you are a hard man. I know that you reap where you have not sowed. And so I was afraid, and I dug a hole and buried the talent or the golden coins that you. I buried them and hid them, but I've dug them back up again. Here they are. They're all there. Every single one is there. I've got it all back for you. And the master says, you worthless, wicked servant. You could have at least put it in the bank. I'm going to cast you out into the darkness where there's going to be weeping and gnashing of teeth. Harsh. I think that's really harsh. And the verse I want to bring to you today is in the context of that parable. It's 25 verse 29, Matthew 25 verse 29, and I'm going to read it from the NASB, and it says it like this: for to everyone who has, more shall be given, and he will have an abundance. But from the one who does not have, even what he does have shall be taken away. Now that doesn't seem very fair to me. One who's got loads, well, we're going to give you more. And the one which hasn't got anything, well, what you do have, I'm going to take that away. I mean, it's kind of a bit like what happens in the world. It's supposed to be, this is what the kingdom of heaven is like. This is kind of what happens in the world, isn't it? Those who are rich seem to get more. I mean, you can get some celebs, they may have lots of money, but they never have to pay for all the designer clothes because the clothing companies pay for them to wear it. But anyway, I'm digressing. Keep me on track. Whoever has, more will be given, and whoever has nothing, what they have will be taken away. Doesn't sound very just and biblical and Jesus-like. But this is Jesus, and this is what the kingdom of heaven is like. But the second issue I have, apart from that, it doesn't seem fair with that statement, with that verse, is this: if I have nothing, how can you take stuff away from me? It must mean that I have something. It's just I regard what I have as nothing. Let me explain it with the story. When I was first married, I'd read the Bible, and I want to be a good Christian, and I knew that the Bible was all about being, there's a lot in it about being hospitable and showing kindness to strangers and showing kindness to friends. And so sometimes I would arrive home and announce to Leslie, out of my goodness of my heart and me want to be generous, hey, I met Ted today and I invited him for tea. Or I think even one time I did it with a whole family. Now, I was expecting, that I'm inviting out of a pure and holy, pure religion. And yet the response I got back from Leslie was something quite different. Bit of shock and horror. You did what? We don't have anything in. I'm going to have to go to the shops. And I'm thinking, we got nothing in? Well, what were we going to eat? I just wanted to share what we were going to eat. I mean, we've always got in our house something to eat. I mean, there's always... in our house, there's always a bag of frozen peas, and there's always a bag, in our cupboard, rice and pasta and cereals and probably bread and crisps and maybe some tinned peaches in our cupboards. I think that at any time, if 2 families came round our house, we would have enough in our house to sustain their house, to nourish their bellies. It might be odd. It might be rice, pasta, a bit of potato, maybe a fried egg with some peaches and some crisps, but we have enough to feed hungry stomachs. What did Leslie mean when she said, I haven't got anything in. I've got nothing. She meant this. What I have is not good enough to share with others. What I have is not good enough to share with others. For whoever has will be given more, and they will have an abundance. Whoever does not have, even what they have, will be taken from them. I tell you something else which this verse reminds me of. It reminds me of the feeding of the 5,000. Jesus is there and there's a crowd. We say 5,000, but that was 5,000 men. It was an incredible crowd of 5,000 men and women and children. And they are in a desolate place. And Jesus instructs the disciples to feed this massive crowd. And he says, go through the crowd and find anybody who has some food. And so the disciples go through. And we know the story. A boy says, hey, I've got 5 loaves and 2 fish. And don't think big loaves of bread. 5 pieces of bread and 2 bits of fish. A small, insignificant amount for feeding over 5,000 people. Probably enough just to feed one person, if that. I'm not sure if I was that boy, I would have offered my food to the disciples. Not out of greed, not out of selfishness, but out of not anxiety, but embarrassment. I mean, surely they don't mean this. They're looking to feed 5,000 people. This is not enough. It's insignificant. I'm a bit embarrassed to try and put this into the pot. I wonder if it was a bit like, you see videos and you get let's say a little daughter, and she sees that her dad's lost his car keys and he's trying to go everywhere around his house, and the girl goes into her bedroom and finds her toy plastic keys and comes out, this little girl coming out and go, here daddy, you can have my keys, and everyone goes, oh bless. I wonder if in this situation the adults in the crowd are looking at this child giving up their lunch going, oh bless. And yet in the hands of Jesus, 5 pitiful loaves and 2 fish was more than enough to feed over 5,000 people. Now it was only the boy in the crowd that offered any food. Out of that many people, was there only one person there with food? Only one. I wonder how many adults there didn't give any food away because what they had they thought was insignificant. I wonder if you were in that crowd and you had a half-eaten Mars bar in your pocket, would you have given that up? Or maybe a half-eaten sandwich and out of date and you were just about to chuck away because you thought it was going off anyway. Would you have offered that to the disciples? I wonder how many missed out on being part of that miracle because they were embarrassed about what they had to give. I wonder as well those who knew they only had a little to sustain themselves and again didn't give it because they thought, well, this is for me, it's only enough for me, and again missed out on that miracle. I remember one Sunday meal we had with the family, all of us, all 5 of us, Josh and Dan, who were teenagers at the time, and I think Anna was about 5 or 6. And when I do Sunday lunch, well, I like doing fresh Yorkshire pudding, not this frozen stuff. I have to make it fresh and then grows really big. And then at one point they all got caught up in the grill elements because there isn't so much. Anyway, it doesn't matter what the meat is, want some Yorkshire pudding. But Leslie, when she cooks Sunday dinner, her target is to get as many vegetables on the plate as possible. And I think she's up to a record of 9 different vegetables on the plate for a Sunday dinner. Anyway, so we're having this Sunday dinner and we probably had a lot of vegetables. And then I think we even had dessert that day. And then me and Leslie break it to the family that we've been looking at our finances and we don't think that we can afford to go on a sub holiday last year like the incredible one we had the year before. Now when I say can't afford, it's like maybe it was financially irresponsible to that, looking at what we got. Well, I was very proud of Josh and Dan, who were out matureness and could see the bigger picture and understood and were very understanding. Disappointed because the holiday we had in Greece the year before was so incredible, but understanding. Anna, however, wasn't so understanding. Remember, she's young. At this time, she's only about 5 or 6. She wants to go on holiday. And so she suddenly gives this proposal onto them. She goes, but if I give all that I have, all the money that I have, and I put it in, and Josh does the same, and Dan does the same, and Mum and Dad, if you put the money that you've got and you put that into the mix, surely out of the 5 of us, we've got enough money to go on holiday. Now, Anna thought she probably had a lot of money in a bank account, piggy bank. Well, she wasn't really spending it anyway. Not at that point. But she probably only had about 20 or 30 pounds. 20 or 30 pounds is an insignificant amount in paying for a foreign holiday. It's not even going to get you the parking at the airport. It is an embarrassing amount to put into the pot as someone going on holiday, as a party. But watch this. The act of a child turned the heart of a father. Or maybe I could put it like this, the faith of a child, or the innocence, or the naivety, or the boldness, or the courage of a child. Changed the hearts of their parents to change our minds of what we're doing and reorder our priorities to get on one of those foreign holidays. What use is my prayer? Well, maybe it's actually quite weak. But in the hands of Jesus, it can move mountains. What use is, I've only got £20 to give. What use is that against a multi-million pound, it sounds even bigger than it is, but it's more than multi-million pound building project. It's insignificant. But in the hands of Jesus, he can work miracles and make it more than enough. Who would want to listen to my testimony? I've got nothing to share. Yet in the hands of Jesus, it brings people to Jesus. It brings breakthrough. How could I ever share? I don't know how to talk to my neighbours. I don't know how to do acts of kindness. I feel all awkward at it. I'm bad at it. I don't know how. But the little that we have, the insignificant skill or talents that we have in the hands of Jesus can do mighty things. I think it's time to stop burying the little that we have. It's not an option. Go back to the parable of the talents. It's not an option. Do not bury our talents. Instead, whatever skills and resources that we have, we need to put them into the hands of Jesus. What about if I get laughed at? I'm worshipping Jesus and giving it to him. What about if the little I gets rejected? He doesn't reject me. Remember, the little that you have is more than enough in the hands of Jesus. The Bible says that God uses the weak things to shame the strong. He uses the poor to shame the rich. Now, I've been watching over lockdown churches all across more in this region, but I worked with quite a few churches before this all happened, and it's interesting to see that there are churches which don't have great wealth in finances or technical ability or the tech things there or the volunteers to put great online services, and all they've been able to do is just put a phone on top of a table and run the service from their living room or their kitchen. And yet some of these churches have seen such incredible results, have had such great fruit and such great reach into their neighborhoods, into this country, where others with all the tech, not so much. I've seen singers and musicians who are not good enough, to be blunt. They don't meet the standard for many of our church platform worship teams. And yet over this time, through using their gifting on social media, have had influence amongst their friends and brought the gospel that way. I've seen churches which are small in number, affecting whole regions because of the work that they've been able to do. Or I've seen larger churches barely able to reach their own congregations. We need to stop trusting in the quality of the loaves and the fishes in our hands and instead trust in the hands of Jesus, in which we put our gifting, our talents, our resources, our time into. It's what he does, not what we are. For whoever has will be given more, and they will have an abundance. Whoever does not have, even what they have will be taken away from them. I want to bring up 2 points. Number one, it's in his hands. If you've been around churches long enough, you'll find those people who are obsessed with one thing. Maybe it's worship leading, maybe it's preaching, maybe it's dancing, maybe it's doing some flag waving or some art, and they devote their lives to it. It's what their passion is in worshipping Jesus, whether they're allowed to or not. It's their passion. That's not what I'm talking about today. I don't think that lad woke up that morning going, do you know what I really want to do? I really want to give away my lunch today. I want to devote my life to it. I've just dreamed for this moment all my life to give away my lunch. You see, when you put something in the hands of Jesus, it's an act of humility. It's an act of sacrifice. When you put it in the hands of Jesus, you are giving up your rights to it. It's not about what you want. It's about what he asks for. Number two, which brings to my second point. Jesus was asking for food. What do you think would happen if the disciples had gone through the crowd asking for food and the boy goes, yeah, you can have my sandals. Or yeah, I'll sing a song. We have a culture where we decide how we worship God. We have a culture of choosing a church, and we will spiritualize it, and we'll put loads of these, of this really good spiritual underpinnings of it. But many of us just choose a church because it's how we want to worship. We want to do the singing we want. We want the service style we want. At this time, through lockdown, and doing churches online, we've been able to choose the preacher we want. We've been able to choose the worship we want from all around the world. And yet, I don't believe it's the worshipper who chooses how the one who's worshipped gets worshipped. I think it's up to Jesus how he gets worshipped. I think it's his choice. Romans 12 verse 1 says this, that living our lives as a holy sacrifice is our pure spiritual act of worship. It's about what he wants, not what we want. It's about him owning it, not having it. And if we put it in his hands, and we do it out of an act of humility, he will raise us up. But it's not like, and this is where it gets dangerous, so many of us, we just get our passions and our desires and our dreams and we try and lift them up ourselves. And God says he actively resists the proud, but he raises up the humble. What does Jesus want? What is the worship that he wants? Well, there are many things, but I do know this. He asks for a life of prayer, for us to be devoted to prayer. He wants us to speaking testimony of what he's done in our lives. He wants us to lay our lives down for one another. It's not about how we want to worship. It's about what he wants. Let me finish with this. Peter and John, they're on the way to the temple, and you'll know the story, and they go past a lame beggar and he asks for money, and Peter says this, I have nothing, but what I have I give you. In the name of Jesus Christ, get up and walk. It's all there. I have nothing, but what I have I give. What I have I give. You see, true faith is this. It's not in what I have, it's in who he is. See, when you understand this, you know that my works are like dirty rags. You know that of me I can do nothing of worth, but through Christ I can do all things. Through me I'm weak, but when I'm weak and I understand that, he is strong because I have the one who created the earth living in me. When I trust in him rather than my abilities, miracles happen, breakthroughs happen, salvation happens, God's kingdom comes to earth. It's not about the quality of the loaves and fishes in our hands. It's about trusting about what Jesus can do with whatever we give him. Are you inspired? It's time for us to get up. Stop worrying about what we're going to be thought of. Stop worrying if we're good enough to be a witness. Stop worrying if our prayers are strong enough. Rather than writing everything off, rather than trusting in who we are and the abilities that we have, we need to purely rely on Jesus and just step out in faith, healing the sick, giving our testimony, loving people, spreading the gospel, and to prayer. Prayer is powerful when you put it in the hands of Jesus.